Hi everyone, hope you're doing well at home and staying safe. In this video, Elizabeth and I are going to show you some simple techniques you can use to release the arms.
Begin by holding your partner's wrist with one hand and encourage them to unlock their elbow. Using your finger pads on the underside of their forearm to help brace your hand, slowly push your thumb up the arm towards the elbow. Use medium pressure. Forearms can be tender and you don't want to injure your thumb. Here we are palpating the extensor muscles, tracing their length. You can use your finger pads here too, massaging with more focus to the area closest to the elbow. Change your grip to using both hands, holding just below the elbow with thumbs braced side by side. Start drawing circles with your thumbs, alternating back and forth over what we call the wad of three, which are the brachioradialis, the extensor carpi radialis, and the extensor carpi brevis. Continue with circles along the arms. See if using your thumbs or your fingers feels better for you. Pin and stretch by pinning the muscles a few inches above the wrist with one hand and bending the wrist with your other hand. Work your way up the forearm with this pin and stretch method. Make a pincer grip with your thumb and fingers to create a gentle pinch of the muscle and continue with circular motions along the forearm. Follow with long sweeps up above the elbow and begin rotating the wrist. This is another way to pin and stretch the muscle origins in the elbow. Go back to any areas you may have felt extra tension. Here I am returning to palpate closer to my partner's wrist. Do supported wrist bends, pushing your thumb into the wrist joint and supporting the palm with your other fingers. Sweep up the arm again with more circular motions. Glide up along the underside of the forearm, along the bone. Play with your grip to find which position is best for your fingers, and continue with these techniques. Turn the underside of the forearm to face upwards so their palm is open to the sky. We are accessing the flexor muscles now. Using the same methods as before, you can sweep toward the elbow using your thumb or fingers, rotating the wrist, doing pin and stretches, circular massage motions, and repeating the pincer grip. Draw circles along the inner wrist and up the forearm. This massages the flexor carpi radialis, the palmaris longus, and the flexor carpi ulnaris. It feels really good. Make sure not to overextend your thumb and switch your grip when you need to for what is most comfortable for your fingers and wrist. The closer you are to the elbow, the more tender the muscles tend to be. Repeat a supported wrist bend and turn the palm upward. Interlace your fingers with theirs and bend their wrist while spreading their palms to stretch their fingers and wrist at the same time. Finish with long sweeps up and down their arm.
I generally like to start my soft tissue work off in the arms by using flossing bands. You can find a lot of different brands on Amazon which will work just fine, but the particular one I'm using here in this video is Rock Tape's Rock Floss. I just happen to be a fan of their products and education, but you could use whatever you can find. How the flossing band works is that it creates a lot of compression over your muscles and fascia so that when you move your body part under that compression, it will increase the shearing forces and friction between the soft tissue, and that will help loosen things up. What I'm doing here is I'm wrapping it around the entire forearm, starting in the hand so I have an anchor, and overlapping by about 50% with each loop. As I come around each time, I'm also pulling and tightening it a little before I lay it down to increase the compression that I'm going to create. This won't be suitable for everyone to use, so I encourage you to read their contraindications on the website and product info if you do happen to look into it. But it's a handy tool to have around to release your arms, thighs, and calves if you're by yourself and you need to do some soft tissue release. Once I've used up the entire length, I'll just tuck the end in under one of the loops to anchor it. I'll then have the patient flex and extend their wrist back and forth for about 30 seconds to create shear in the soft tissue. Normally I would do this a couple more times and also initiate the wrapping from above the wrist a little bit so I can wrap over the elbow, as that's where the muscles in the forearms are originating from, and I want to loosen them up along their entire length. So once you've spent a few minutes doing that, I'll have them shake their arms out a little bit to get the blood flowing again, and then I'll proceed with the hands-on work. We're going to use a pin and stretch technique like we did before in my neck and shoulder video, which I'll link to at the end. So the extensors of the wrists are on the back side of the forearm, and the flexors are on the front side of the forearm. There are several individual muscles that comprise the extensors and flexors, which I have a picture up there for you, but you don't need to possess perfect knowledge of which muscle you are on to get results at home. The extensor side is probably going to be the more tight and tender side, as most of us are using the keyboard or laptop on a table, so you're lifting your wrist and individual fingers more to type. You can identify the tight and tender spots by doing a back and forth rolling scan with pressure from your thumb like I'm doing here. I'm looking for any muscles that feel like they stick out a little more than their neighbors, but oftentimes the person will tell you what's bugging them when you're scanning. Since this is the extensor side of the wrist, I'm going to have them bend their wrist backwards to activate the extensor muscles, which will shorten them. I like to release the muscle along most of its length, so I'll start at the end closest to me. What I'll do is I'll take my thumb, I'll press down moderately hard, and then using my other thumb to reinforce the grip, I'll have them flex and bend the wrist down towards the ground. When they get to end range, I'll let up the pressure, and then I'll have them return their hand to the starting position, and I'll move up to the next position in the muscle, and I'll repeat the process. The only difference being in this pin and stretch technique from Elizabeth's is that the person is doing it actively instead of you doing it passively. What we're doing with this technique is using a combination of focused compression and shearing to help relax muscles and loosen fascia to provide relief. You don't necessarily have to use the hardest pressure either to get results. Take your time and spend a few minutes doing this. And again, don't worry if you feel like you're not on a specific muscle. Even if you're on two of them, you're probably going to give them relief either way. In this particular example, I'm on the extensor digitorum muscle, which is a commonly tender muscle. We'll repeat the process for the flexor side, except the only difference is they'll be curling their hand and fingers toward you and then bending the wrist away towards the ground. Spend a few minutes doing this side as well. One particular flexor muscle that might be relevant to some people is the pronator teres muscle. It runs diagonally from the inner elbow to the upper forearm. The median nerve runs through the two heads of the pronator teres on its path to the wrist, and for some people who experience numbness, tingling, or weakness in their hand, or think they have carpal tunnel syndrome, it can sometimes be alleviated with some soft tissue work to this muscle. You should get it checked out regardless. To release the pronator teres, I first identify it by using one hand to swivel the forearm back and forth, while I use my thumb on the other to feel for its profile. Referring to the picture can be very helpful. Once I'm on it, I'll use my thumb and apply a deep pressure while simultaneously pushing upward along the length of the muscle. I'll do this several times, moving down the length of the muscle. Spend a couple of minutes here. So there you have it. There's some techniques from Elizabeth and I that you can use to alleviate forearm tension at home. We hope to see you next video. Thanks for watching.